if my story changes you and it's able to make you a better parent, a better father, man, that's all I can really ask for.
Welcome to Fatherhood Voices, breaking the toxic cycle. Dive in as real dads bear all, the mess ups, make-ups, and every heartfelt moment in between. It's raw, it's real, and it might just change the way you see family.
Welcome to another episode of Fatherhood Voices. Oh man, this is going to be a powerful episode today. And the reason is because the way that I met Hector Centeno, welcome by the way.
Thank you.
And I was at Cracker Barrel. I was finished up a meeting at Cracker Barrel one day, not too long ago, and I was actually on Rialto. And I looked over and I just saw him with his girls. I didn't know there was girls at the time, but young girls, and the way he was interacting and just being silly and in the moment. And I was like, man, that's such a beautiful moment. I don't know if anybody's told him hey dad, you're doing a great job. Just looking at the energy. And then something happened. So I went to go pay and he went to go pay. And one of his daughters, she dropped a drink. Now, let me tell you, when that shit happened, when my girls were younger, I lost my shit. Okay. And I could say I probably spanked them. I was a piece of shit dad. I was not a good dad. I probably yelled at them. I probably scolded them because they were being children, because it was an accident. But the way Hector approached it, he's like, it's okay. And I'll let him share. But it was gentle. It was gentle parenting. It was love and compassion. It was not making her feel embarrassed or like she'd done something wrong. And then he just got some napkins and asked and cleaned it up. And I'm like, okay, now I really need to talk to you, and I need to find out a little bit more. And then we started talking, and then how he shared that his girls were getting ready to start school, and so he took them on a camping trip. And now he brought them to Cracker Barrel because that's what he did when he was a child. So how could I not pass up such a beautiful moment to showcase a father that's showing up for his girls, and then to find out that, yeah, there's a story behind the story, and a story that, I can keep talking and talking. But with that, Hector, welcome to Fatherhood Voices.
Thank you, Edward. Thank you. I greatly appreciate you inviting me to come and share my story. I know I've seen what you've done with previous guests and what your message is, and I jumped at the opportunity to be a part of it. So I wanted to thank you for allowing me to, share some words with your audience.
Thank you. So do the girls know that you're going to be on?
Actually, no.
Okay.
I wanted to surprise them. And it's funny because I know that before you shared a little short video of our first interaction, and I shared it with my daughters, and they were so happy. They were my youngest daughter even started crying. Wow. And oh my God, already, right? I get emotional because, as a dad, especially as a dad, can't help but being so involved in their lives and just wanting to just see that they're doing so great and just be happy. It's emotional because I just want them to experience nothing but joy. So when I showed them the video, they were so happy, and so I didn't want to tell them just yet because obviously I wanted to share this video with them once it's up, and I can't wait to see their faces.
Oh man, that's gonna be so cool. It's a couple of guests that come on and they shared something. They said, the best job in the world is being a father, and I didn't always believe that. I wasn't always a strong promoter of a father. To me, it was money, it was the thrill of the deal. But then now, as I've stepped into my own spirituality and now starting to realize that family first over anything else, I'm realizing that fatherhood is the number one job.
Yeah.
It's the most important job that a man could ever have.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. I mean, a lot of, men get put in a role that, sometimes they're not ready for, and hey, it happens. I do realize the gravity of what the role of a father is, and I do take it seriously. I do not take it for granted. Every chance that I get to experience being a father, I mean, I enjoy it to the very core of me. I love being a dad, and they know that I love being a dad. You know, I'm silly with them. You know, I try to be the best that I can for them. You know, obviously, um, you know, with that role comes obviously discipline, you know, education, you know, health, everything. You know, all those roles, you know, are kind of rolled into that to that fatherhood role. So, you know, I don't take it for granted, and you know, obviously, you know, I hope that you know in the future, you know, they recognize that, you know, and they recognize that all I wanted to do is just be the best dad for them.
So before we get into your story of what little Hector looked like growing up in South Central, are you a girl dad?
I am.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Dad.
I wasn't a girl dad, man. So I give you props. I was such an asshole. My girls wanted to paint my nails. They wanted to put makeup on me. And my ego and masculine was so strong that I just refused to do it. And I'm going to let my granddaughter, she's going to paint me like a, man. Yeah, she's going to paint me up and I'm going to look like a drag queen. I don't give a shit. And I'm going to go on social media. I'm going to dance around in a dress. And I'm going to be like, Bella, let's go. We're princesses together.
And there's not a lot of proof of it, right? But no, I mean, obviously, you play dress up, you play whatever that you can to, you know, because, you know, at the end of the day, the way I see it, at least, is that, you know, yeah, you're going to look silly for a little bit. You're going to feel silly. And yeah, they might snap pictures and, you know, whatever. And in the moment, yeah, you might feel a little weird. But you know what? That's something that they're going to carry with them for the rest of their lives. They're going to carry it for the rest of their lives. And, you know, you can't really put a price on that. I can't put an ego on that. I can't put, you know, selflessness on that. You just got to do it. You know what I mean? You know, sometimes, we let our ego kind of just run our emotions and our actions, and you know, I can't do that. I mean, I kind of just it's hard sometimes, especially the way that I grew up, you know what I mean, the environment that I grew up, the community I grew up, you know, it's kind of hard to put that ego aside. And you know, but when you have a young girl's face that's telling you, come on dad, it's, you know, I couldn't. So you know, you just gotta be present. You know, you gotta do all that stuff that you don't want to do, but you gotta do it.
You know, for you machismo dads out there, like, no. Then you know what? Just do it. Just don't let them take pictures. But share those memories with your kids, man, because my kids, even in their 20s now, they're still like, you know, man, why couldn't you? You know, why? And I look back on those missed opportunities. Why? Because it wasn't manly to do, or it wasn't, you know, the machismo. Man, just do it, you know. And if you can let them take a picture too, hey, why not? But if that's not your forte, still, man, be a girl dad. Don't live in regret, because I guarantee you will live in regret as you get older and wiser. But Ruben, what did childhood look like for you growing up in South Central?
Well, I want to say my childhood wasn't anything exceptional. It wasn't any different than what a lot of people were experiencing there. We grew up poor, you know, to say the least. I mean, mom was working 3 jobs, you know, dad was working overtime, you know. So, you know, my parents, as much as they wanted to be present, I mean, they couldn't, you know, they had to take care of business. And obviously that's, you know, where I get my work ethic from. And you know, it wasn't very how can I say this, like I said, we grew up poor, but in the moment you don't really realize it, you know what I mean, because everybody else is pretty much
normal.
the same. Everybody was growing up the same. Everybody growing up with, like, you know, whatever, food stamps and, you know, government assistance. And you know, but you know, thank goodness I had caring parents. I'm not gonna lie, I did have caring parents. They did come with their faults, which, you know, I'll talk about here in just a moment. But they did the best they can with the tools that they have. And you know, one thing that I've realized, especially in the later years, is that you know, you can't really ask for more than that. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in ghetto, uh, really hard neighborhoods, gangs, you name it. But there was great this is great moments that I went through, as a child. Obviously you grow up with, your cousins are your first friends, and then you have your friends that, you grew up with, and, you know, riding bikes, getting into trouble, and, those are things that, great memories that you create. So I did have a hard environment that I grew up in. Not that I realized it in the moment, but looking back, you're thinking, man, like how am I still alive? How am I all that trouble that I got myself into, and you know, going places like sometimes really far. I think to myself, I wouldn't let my daughters do half of the things, or more than half of the things that I did growing up. But um, again, it wasn't super spectacular. I did move around a lot when I was young, which in a way made it really hard for me to kind of, build roots and, create long lasting friendships. But what I did take away from that is that it did allow me to learn how to make friends real quick. You know what I mean? So, build those social skills, and, just even though the relationships that I created, the friendships that I created weren't long lasting, they were great while they lasted, and that's something positive that I took away from having to move around a lot.
What caused the movement that you guys moved around so much?
Various reasons, to be honest. Sometimes rent was too high. We had to get a bigger place. Sometimes, they were able to purchase houses. They lost houses. Like, it's just a lot of different reasons that, we had to move around. It's funny because I was telling my friend a story that, sometimes I wouldn't even unpack because I knew we were going to move pretty soon. So I had stuff in boxes, and when I was ready to move, I just grabbed the boxes and just moved.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was tough having to move around a lot. Um, so it's difficult, but you learn to cope with it.
And then what would you tell parents that are maybe experiencing a lot of movement with their kids? Maybe because of financial reasons, maybe because not in a good place. What could your parents have done to help with the transition? Is there anything they could have done, like looking back now as an adult, and then looking at when you were a kid? What could they have done? Because there's a lot of families going through that.
Well, I mean, it's the financial aspect of it. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, a lot of families struggle, especially nowadays. It's rents like crazy high. Home ownership is just like nobody's able to do it now. Um, so it is what it is, right? But I think what would help their children, and what would have helped me, was the communication. You know what I mean? Being able to communicate with your kids. I know that, in some communities, having to be very open and honest and vulnerable with your kids is a big no-no. But, I think if we would have been able to have experienced that with our parents, it would have helped with your transition. You know what I mean? I think if they would have explained to me, hey, listen, guys, for this reason, we're gonna have to move again. It definitely would have helped me emotionally. Later on in my teen years, I suffered, severe depression. I didn't know what that was in the moment. I wasn't diagnosed, and I didn't know I had it until later on in my life. I still have it. I was diagnosed depression, anxiety, ADD, all that. But again, communication is extremely important. Those are the things that um, you have to be able to talk to your kids about. Very, very important. But yeah, I would definitely say communication was very important.
And what do you think caused you depression when you were growing up?
I think it's the fact that I didn't know how to deal with a lot of the things that were going on in my environment. I internalized a lot because one, I didn't have, like I said, my parents were working a lot. When they came home, they were too tired to even want to talk or, go play or whatever. Um, Mom was very strict, very, disciplinarian. So being open with her was, I mean, nearly impossible. And the moments that I did open up to her about certain situations, it became a lecture. It was really difficult to talk to her about anything. So, and she's probably gonna see this and she's gonna be like, "Well, you never told me this." But at the end of the day, uh, I didn't know how to cope with a lot of the changes that were going on in my life. Being a teenager, having to move around a lot, um, you know, not being able to really connect with somebody at a deeper level, didn't have anybody to open up to. So I internalized a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings. So those things bottled up into depression, anxiety, and again, things that even now I'm still kind of learning how to cope with and learning how to deal with. But yeah, those are the things that kind of,
You said something that really stood out. You said, mom was a disciplinarian, so you couldn't really voice. There's a lot of children that are struggling with that right now because their dad's not around, either because they're working or so the mom takes on the masculine.
yeah,
So they step out of the feminine because they have to step in, and sometimes the fathers just aren't there; they're not present.
yeah.
What are some things you could share with a masculine mom right now? Because there's a lot of you masculine moms out there that are watching this to start to create that little bit of a crack in the dam to just, I understand that you're in your masculine because it's protection, but
Yeah.
with your kids, what can they do? What advice would you give them? As a kid, like you want to share, but then you don't want to get lectured. You want to get punished. How could things have been different? What advice would you give to these? What would advice you give to your mom? How old are you?
I'm 41.
41. So
Yeah.
what would you have given your advice to your mom 30 years ago? When you were in that moment and
Yeah.
you wanted to share, you wanted to speak your truth, but you couldn't.
Well, first and foremost, I got to give it up to the moms that are like doing both roles because, that's a different level of difficulty in itself. But what I would say is that just be very, very open-hearted, open-minded. Just allow yourself to be vulnerable. I know for a lot of people, not just moms, but dads that are taking on both roles, but it's very difficult to allow yourself to put your guard down because, you kind of have to be guarded and you have to put on a hard shell, hard armor because that's what you need for yourself to survive. You need your sanity. You need to be very, very just got to take care of business, right? And for some people it's really difficult to just let the guard down. You know what I mean? You don't want to expose yourself, be vulnerable because just life's just hard to you. But what I would say is just try to be very vulnerable and just open up your heart and just share your story with your children so that they can have an understanding of why you are the way you are. So, wow.
It's powerful. Share your story. That's powerful.
So,
That needs to be an Instagram clip.
my mom never shared her story with me. The only reason I know my mom's story was from my dad. She grew up in El Salvador. She had to work at a very young age, maybe like 6, selling Sorry. Selling bread in brothels in between people having sex. Having to see that at an early age. Her mom wasn't around, and it wasn't in the picture. Mom abandoned her. Dad wasn't in the picture. She was raised by her grandparents, so didn't really have that love from parents. So, um, my relationship with my mom wasn't the greatest, but um, I, I don't resent her. You know what I mean? I learned to just let that go. Once I understood her story, it allowed me to understand why she was the way she was. She was I think I shared this with you before. She was very abusive. Well, I won't say very, but she was a disciplinarian, um, physically abusive, verbally abusive. She wasn't around as much, and whenever she was around, she was yelling and screaming, and very hard for her. And through my therapy sessions, I didn't realize this until now, but I don't ever remember my mom telling me I love you. As a kid. She says it a lot now, but as a kid, I don't remember her really saying that. And that when my therapist was like, well, did she ever tell you she loved you? And I was like, wait, no, she didn't. And I think I just kind of suppressed that because I just didn't want to. I was in denial, I guess. I'm not sure, um, but yeah, I mean, I think if my mom would have just told me her story from the get go, I would have understood. It would have avoided a lot of conflicts we had, especially when I was, of age to leave. I left as soon as I could. So, um, and but you kind of learn to just kind of see the positive in things. You know what I mean? That it allowed me to be independent and just kind of learn things on my own. Um, it made me the man I am now. So with that said, now as a dad, like I'm like conscious of all of that I went through, and in a way I kind of shelter them from a lot. I want to shelter them from a lot that is going on, in the world. But um, you know, I kind of remember a lot of the things that I went through as a kid, and I as soon as I do, I'm very conscious that I don't project. You know what I mean? I don't project any of that stuff into the way I parent. So, uh, yeah. So I mean, for again, kind of going back to your questions, for all the moms that have to really find it really difficult, to be able to connect with your kid at a certain level, because you're protecting them, and I understand that, but in a way you're also hindering them from really connecting with anybody else, because if they can't connect with you, how do you expect them to connect with anybody else?
And why do you think your mom still hasn't shared her story with you?
I think I think it's just trauma that I think she's never really fully dealt with. She's never really dealt with it. I think in our community, it's really difficult to kind of reach out to people. Um, and what I mean by that is like therapy, counselors, your faith. It's really hard to kind of reach out to people at moments of vulnerability because, we kind of have to, again, kind of going back to like, putting on a guard and armor, it's difficult to kind of get out of that. So it's really hard for her to really open up about that stuff. I really can't speak for her. I really can't say what her reasons would be, but what I would imagine is just um, childhood trauma that she never really learned to deal with it and dealt with it.
Do you want to have that talk in this lifetime before she passes?
I've asked myself that question, and I've, for the most part of my life, it was yes, I do. But I think as I'm getting older, I understand her more as to why she doesn't want to. Um, obviously, there's a small part of me that yes, I would want to hear it. I think it served a better purpose before, but now it's just for my selfishness. I would want to hear it. You know what I mean? Because that's something that family history that you'd like to know. But as I get older, I understand her more as to why she wouldn't want to open up about that stuff. But
And
yeah.
she's still alive, and
Oh yeah,
and she'll probably see this.
she's most definitely gonna
Most definitely. What's her name?
Teresa.
Teresa. Help your son heal. The way for a man to become a better father is by healing their inner child. And that's one of the pillars that I stand on. And I know you say no, when I was younger, yes, but you still need that closure.
Yeah.
And I hope that maybe this episode just may spark that conversation.
Yeah.
Because we have to go back and heal our inner child.
Yeah.
And that's something that, if you can have closure with that in this lifetime,
Yeah.
would be beautiful, because that sits in the back of our subconscious, and then it'll show up, with your girls in other ways.
Oh, yeah.
Even though you're being present, there's going to be ways where it's going to show up, and you're not even realize
Yeah.
that you're repeating the cycle, but it happens. That's just unfortunately the way the mind works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but on the other hand, with my dad, it's the complete opposite. Like my dad, it's funny. My dad used to sell at a swap meet in Gardena.
The rhodium swap meet.
It wasn't the rodeo.
Was it the rodeo? Okay, 'cause
It
I
was.
actually worked with-
It was. It used to be a drive-in theater in on Vermont. I think it's closed down now. I'm
Okay.
not sure, but I would go help him every weekend, and that was our bonding time. And obviously, there's lull times, and we would just he would just tell me his life story growing up as kids. That's what I would look forward to. So I connected with my dad at a different level. My dad's my best friend. Like, I tell him everything. He should be on the podcast, really, because he's such an amazing dad, and that's where kind of like I model my fatherhood from. You know what I mean? He loved kids. I love kids, and I think for the longest, I even as a kid, I think I knew I wanted to be a dad because of how cool of a dad he was.
Wow.
But yeah, my dad's amazing. Yeah.
You just triggered a story. So I, when I used to live in Compton, me and my neighborhood friends, we would get up, and this was like when I was 7, 8 years old. We would get up every Saturday and Sunday at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30, take the Gardena Transit down to the Rhodium Swap Meet in Gardena, and we'd go help. And we'd get paid like $10 for the day, $15.
Yeah.
If we were lucky, man, whoever hired us would buy our food, but most of the time, fuck, man, they would take it out of our little measly $10 or $15. I'm like, fucking kidding me? I'm going to buy hot dogs. I'm slaving for 10, 12 hours. And then it sucked because you don't know what the trucks have when you go and you ask for help, you want to work for the day. And then you open up and it's fucking Levi's. Oh, fuck, man. I got to set up thousands of pairs of Levi's or shoes. And but you know what I took
at least
from
you got paid. I didn't get paid.
You know what I took from that is when my oldest daughter, Alyssa, when she was growing up, we decided to open a business. It was called Aloha Imports, and it was remote control cars and boats. It's before like all the big stores got them. So we went and bought them, and then we would go to the Santa Fe Springs swap meet. We lived in San Clemente at the time. We'd drive all the way to Santa Fe Springs, and we'd get up like at 4 a.m. and go set up. And that was our bonding time. Mm-hmm. We'd get some hot chocolate and a donut, and we'd work all day, and she'd sell, and man, such beautiful memories, and we did that for, I want to say a whole year, but I got tired, because I was working full-time job and then starting my business. But she always says like, man, I miss that time.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, you miss getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, driving, working all day, setting up. But it was like, it was her. It wasn't about selling. It was time to spend with her dad.
Yeah.
It was a memories, and I just didn't connect it at the time,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I wish I could go back and I would have extended that longer, because even though we're work, because my mind was always work, work, work,
Yeah.
there was quality time happening. There were memories happening there.
Oh yeah.
But I was too blind to see them.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think sometimes we get caught up in like, life, that sometimes we forget to understand what's important in that moment, and you know, for that person, obviously it's the bonding time with their parent, but um, yeah, I mean, same thing for me. I mean, I think yeah, I hated waking up like at the butt crack of dawn, and having to like load stuff up into the van and whatnot. That was horrible. I hated it. But what stuck around in my mind was the bonding time I had with my dad and the stories he would tell me about his childhood, um, and he grew up in Jalisco too. I think the other
Yeah.
gentleman that was here before, is from Jalisco, but um, yeah, no, I mean, definitely, I think those are the moments that kind of stick with you. And, again, that's kind of how I model myself. All of the things that I do with my kids, are just memory, um, uh, what's the word? Um, that's what I want them to take out of it. You know what I mean? It's just the memories behind it. It's memory driven, I guess, is what I want to say. So, yeah, I mean, those are the important things, growing up, and I got to give a shout out to my dad. I mean, for, just being amazing. And not only that, my two older siblings, they have different fathers. And, he took them in when they were little. It took them in. I think my brother was 6, my sister was 3 or something like that. Um, so he took them in as very, very little. And raised them as his own, and my dad has a really big heart, and you know, I think it wasn't easy. You know what I mean? It wasn't easy for him to, you know, going, taking care of some other dude's kids, and but he didn't see it that way. For him, that was his kids. To this day, I mean, to this day, these are his children. And uh, and they know it. They know that they love my dad too, and um, they recognize that what he did for them, um, and then obviously, he had me. I have 2 younger siblings, and you know, my dad just loves all of us the same, and you can tell definitely.
So I'm not going to ask who the favorite is, and not going to stir any shit up.
And they all know I'm the favorite.
So
Um,
how, opposites attract. So your mom's on one spectrum, your dad's on the other one.
mhm.
Then one's from Jalisco, one's from El Salvador, even more,
Yeah.
How did that dynamic look like, growing up? If your dad was more like open, more feelings, more, I'm going to say more in the feminine, but I don't mean that in a negative way.
Mhm.
Because I'm more in my feminine now as opposed to my masculine. And then your mom's in her masculine.
Mhm.
How did that look like in the house?
Well, I mean, well, I mean, in that sense, there was always clashing, fights, arguments. Um, Not to say that it was the norm, but I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't unusual. We would definitely see and hear our fair share of like them yelling, screaming, and um, you know, once my mom gets aggravated, she's very aggravated, very vocal and physical, obviously, and so there was always that, and I grew up thinking that was normal. It was a commonplace, thing to happen. But um, once you kind of get out of that, get away from that, and you start seeing other relationships, other people, you start seeing that that's not the norm. That's not normal. Um, so I kind of just recognized early on, like, or what I mean, early in my young adulthood, that that wasn't the norm. It was some of my first serious relationships were like that, very toxic, very I kind of just allowed that to kind of cross over to my relationships. And um, but just sometimes it's hard for people to kind of realize that that's very toxic, very, but unfortunately it's very commonplace, especially in the Latino community. um, I know there's a lot of jokes and memes and stuff like that that kind of normalize toxicity, calling people toxicos and toxicas and all that stuff, and they normalize it in that way. But in all seriousness, is that's not right. You know what I mean? I'm totally against it. I understand that it is what it is. Sometimes you can't help it, but let's recognize that yes, it's there, but let's do something about it. You know what I mean? Let's not just be okay, I'm toxic or I'm toxica, and be like, okay, what can we do? I mean, there's a lot you can do. um and I'm gonna say a lot that therapy is by far the best thing you can do. You know what I mean? It's helped me a lot. It's helped me realize a lot about myself. um but without deviating too much from your original question, you know the dynamic was very obvious. There was, um like I said, a lot of yelling, screaming. My mom would kick my dad out, and slamming doors. So it was very prominent. Um, um, and that kind of affected you know my older siblings. You know what I mean? My older siblings kind of felt the brunt of it. Especially because they saw a lot more of it. Um, my dad. I don't want to say that this is what probably made my brother go into gangs, but I mean, he went into gangs. You know what I mean? And I can only imagine that a lot of it had to do with the fact that he wanted to get away from something like that. My older sister, she left the house when she was really young too, um, and got pregnant, kind of at 18, which maybe at that time was probably normal, but um, my brother was in and out of gangs, and not in and out of prison, I should say, in gangs. Uh, got into drugs, and kind of just let that be a bigger part of his life. We're estranged now. We don't talk, and but again, that stemmed from the household being so. Um,
Wasn't safe.
yeah, it was. Yeah, definitely,
it's
definitely really feel safe. For
it's
sure.
something I talk about a lot. Is are you creating an emotionally safe house for your for your kids? Not
Yeah.
physically, but emotionally safe.
No, absolutely.
And from what it sounds like, like you were quick to, as soon as you can get out, you want to get out. Your sister, your brother. So unfortunately, the home may have been physically safe, but it wasn't emotionally safe.
Yeah.
And that's what motivates kids to want to get out at 18, as soon as they're up to go join the military, just whatever, go live with friends, go live
Yeah.
on the streets.
Yeah.
And then how, your siblings all have different lives, how they go different paths.
Yeah.
You went one direction, your brother went towards gangs, your sister went another direction,
Yeah.
and that's important is, as parents, a lot of times there's a lot of toxicity, a lot of fighting, and we think like, oh, well, we need to stay together for the kids. Fuck, man. It's better to
yeah.
just separate. It's better to just go your separate ways.
Yeah.
It's not, you're doing more damage than you are doing good.
Yeah.
And it's hard,
Yeah.
but sometimes two people just don't, you created a family, but it doesn't mean
Yeah.
you can still be a family, but separate.
Yeah, no, and so that's kind of what it's funny you say emotionally safe household. I kind of think back to when I separated from my daughter's mother. That's was the driving reason why I didn't want want them to grow up in something like that, because I remember growing up in something like that, and it damaged me severely. And so it was important for me to recognize, like, hey, listen, I hate to break up a family, and I kind of just live with that guilt still. You know what I mean? um, I would much rather feel the guilt of breaking up a family, a family unit, than for my daughters to grow up thinking that it's okay for you to live in a household where, like, yelling and screaming and fighting is okay. That's not what I want to show them, and I think they're much better for it. You know what I mean? I think they're gonna know that, okay, maybe it's not okay for you to stay in a relationship where, like, you're being verbally abused, physically abused. Again, not that that's what was happening in our household, but um, you know, I want them to recognize that the emotional cues, like, hey, listen, this doesn't feel right. I need to get away from this. So I hope that that's what they get away from it, right? I mean, I hope that that's what they understand what happened. But essentially, uh, it was it was easy for me to recognize that I didn't want them to be in that environment. It was a lot more difficult to pull the trigger and do it. You know what I mean? So for all those families out there that maybe therapy can't help you, maybe it's time for you to just understand that if you have kids, you know it's time to do something about that. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not about you, it's about the kids.
No, absolutely. And absolutely, therapy is very important, and so is journaling and coaching, and I'm just going to even go to another extreme and say if therapy is not working, then it's time to explore other alternatives, and that's plant medicine, and that's breath work, and maybe even sitting ceremony with ayahuasca and wachuma and psilocybin, because
Do
those are
something.
things that have been used, in the past,
Yeah.
by doctors, by the government to help heal
Yeah.
World War II veterans that were coming back and experiencing PTSD. So, absolutely, whatever it is, like you said, get out there and do something. Whatever your cup of tea is, but go out and do something.
Yeah.
Exhaust all efforts before you break apart your family. And how long were you in this relationship with the girls' moms before?
For 11 years.
11 years.
Yeah, we
Okay.
were together 11 years.
And then, so, and it's powerful that you had the courage to say, like, hey, this is not safe for my girls. This is not. Now, was a breakup mutual, or how?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we both recognized that, it was for the girls. You know what I mean? I think for both of us, our girls are our top priority. And so, towards the end, it was becoming more and more obvious that we weren't meant for each other. So, yeah, so we just sat down and we're just like, yeah, I don't think anything's gonna help. I think it's time for us to, split up. But it was very mutual. Um, you know, I think we kind of both felt a sense of relief, I think, afterwards. Um, so I know that, um, I think maybe at first we wanted to be a little bit more, less amicable, but knowing that the girls might be affected by it, I think we just kind of just allowed ourselves to just be as very civil about it as possible. But yeah.
How's the relationship with the co-parenting going?
Well, I can't say that it's been an easy road. You know what I mean? We both have never been in this situation before, so kind of just working out the kinks. Especially at first, it was very difficult. Um, with the schedules and whatever. But once we worked out the kinks, kind of get into a rhythm. It again, it's not perfect, but I mean, it's there and it's working out for us so far.
And what have you guys done to minimize the impact on your girls?
For certain, not talk in front of them about certain things. I think it's important that we communicate with them, like, hey, listen, this is what's going on. Just not be very detailed about it. You know what I mean? Certain things they won't understand anyway. So, but you know, definitely being able to be again, just communication, being able to talk to them, just letting them know, hey, what's going on. Um, but I think that's it. That's just being able to talk to them, explain to them, and just being very open minded with them.
Do you guys Copeland holidays or birthday parties, or is it all just separate?
No, we for the most part everything's together.
Okay.
You know, I'm again, I'm very involved. I'm gonna be there regardless. You know what I mean? So, and I think she knows that. She knows that I'm gonna be there for them, and I just like to be involved. So, holidays and all that stuff is very, very important for both of us, and so we like to kind of just, make sure that we're both there for them, and special, events, baptism, first communions and all that stuff. Like we all kind of just, did it together. So yeah, yeah, no, and I think I like that about our co-parenting, uh, relationship, that we both understand what's important here, and it's the girls for sure.
Wow. How long have you guys been separated now?
uh wow, I want to say 6 years.
Okay, okay,
Yes,
so it's been a
it's
while.
been,
It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So the girls have had a chance to get accustomed to it.
Oh yeah, yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, no, my youngest one was not even walking when it happened. Now she's 7, and yeah, no, time flies for sure. But I think throughout the time, uh, it wasn't easy for me to be a single dad. I was kind of learning myself. Because I understand that I am a father. This is my role. I have to do whatever I can. I'm not perfect. I mean, I still have my kinks, but at the end of the day, I come from a good place. Obviously, I want to make sure that they're well taken care of in any way possible, not just physically, mentally, but emotionally. You know what I mean? They have to be taken care of. Um, so in the beginning it was very difficult, especially because I was really depressed in the beginning. You know what I mean? And it was difficult for me to be able to be present emotionally, because I didn't even know how to deal with my own emotions in the beginning. So yeah, and it was a trying time for me. But at the end of the, so I just like to evolve and grow, and I like to uh, make sure that things are not great right now, but they are gonna get better for sure.
Mm. And how old are you girls?
7, 11, and 17.
Okay, can we say their names?
Yeah, so Sophia's 7,
Okay,
Melody's 11, and Audrey's 17.
okay.
Yeah, they're my
And
world. Yeah.
so when you think of your girls, we'll start with the oldest. What's one thing that stands out about her?
Well, my oldest, she's the shyest. She's very, very in her shell, um, and but she's the most creative. You know what I mean? Like, she comes up with stories. She likes video editing, and I was telling your videographer, like, oh, how did you get into it? So I was like kind of learning, but she
Internship.
yeah, she loves video editing and all that, and so she's really creative. I love that about her. I'm very creative myself. I come from an art background, and I love art, and so I kind of just we share that creativity. She likes hearing my crazy stories from before too. You know what I mean? So I kind of feel like the bond I have with my dad, she's kind of sharing that with me too. Melody, very academic, very takes her studies very seriously, but she's also the most athletic one. She's in cheer, and she like just very, very active. um, I would say my youngest, Sophia, she's the life of the family. She's a ball of energy. Uh, Likes to act out stuff. She likes to just make people laugh. All very funny. She makes me laugh. I don't know where she gets it from, but she has me cracking up. And yeah, she's just a joy to be around. Yeah, I'm very proud of each and every one of them. You know what I mean? In their own way, they prove to me that they're just amazing individuals, and I couldn't be prouder, you know, for them.
Wow. What are your hopes and aspirations for them?
Well, I mean, I think for a lot of parents, obviously you want them to be but happy, but for me, I think it's more important um, that they learn to cope with things. You know what I mean? Learn to cope with life. Life is not going to be easy. We're not going to be around to be able to help them. Being able to understand that life is just going to come at you sideways. Hey, just things are going to happen. Sometimes you don't have any control over that. But if you learn how to, you know, if you learn the skills to be able to cope with all of that stuff, um, and if I can be a big part of teaching those skills, even better. So I think just knowing that, I think that's what I would want for them. And yeah, of course, for them to be happy.
Wow. And so your inspiration, your motivation for being the best version of a dad that you can came from just where you lacked as a child and seeing like the things that you wanted.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I didn't come from the best background, you know what I mean? And a lot of us don't, so you kind of have to learn the skills to be able to kind of attain that for yourself, you know what I mean? And I'm not talking about like, financially or anything like that, but emotionally, to just be able to learn the skills to be able to cope with life. And that's what I did, you know what I mean? Life threw things at me left and right, you know what I mean? Whether it's like moving around or, your relationship with your parents and, or just the neighborhood you grew up in. And, I mean, you learn how to just kind of like, roll with the punches. And that's what life taught me. And I want to be able to relate that to my daughters, but in not such a very obvious way, you know what I mean? Just try to talk to them, have those conversations with them, that life is just not fair sometimes. And you're going to have to deal with certain things that are not within your control, but you just kind of have to roll with the punches. But yeah.
What would be your style of parenting? If I could put one, is it gentle? Is it authoritarian? Which I don't definitely don't think it's
Mhm.
authoritarian, or even not even just going off the traditional roles they have. But what do you think your style of parenting is with your girls?
Well, not sure how to boil it down to just one style. I mean, I would definitely say that for me, uh, being able to be vulnerable with your kids, I think it's very important. I mean, gentle, I guess, if you want to just kind of just put it in a certain way, but not in a way that, uh, I guess, with a little bit of authoritarian thrown in the mix, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you still do have to protect them, and you still have to teach them things. And sometimes it's not going to be easy. Sometimes it's not going to be, you can't, gentle your way into teaching them not to do certain things. You know what I mean? Sometimes you are going to have to show some sort of discipline, but it doesn't have to be traumatic. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be something that's going to affect them in the long term. There's certain ways to really approach certain things, and yelling at them, screaming at them is probably not going to be the answer at that time. But there are certain moments where like you're going to have to just maybe raise your voice a little bit. So I'm not very gentle where like um, you know uh, they kind of get away with a lot of things, but I am gentle in the moments that are require me to be. You know what I mean? There's certain you know things that they're gonna go through that are gonna require that you be vulnerable and be open minded. I remember one point, um, my daughter told me she had a crush on a boy, and in that moment, I I I got triggered, and I wanted to say something that that a typical dad would have said. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? You're not supposed to, whatever, right? But then I was like, okay, wait a minute, think about it, slow down. Um, these things are gonna happen. It's just life. You know what I mean? And so my response was, hey, like that's a normal thing for you to go through. You know what I mean? You're gonna have crushes on boys, and had that conversation with my daughter. So you know, it's kind of hard for me to kind of like really kind of just pinpoint to like one style, and I don't think we should really kind of boil it down to just like a certain style.
I like that.
I think I think we should definitely be open to just knowing your kids, knowing what they require emotionally. Certain kids are, they need that, you know, that finesse, that, they need that, you know what I mean, because we can't handle it any other way. There's no one size fits all when it comes to parenting. I think it's definitely important that we understand what our kids need emotionally, and be able to cater to that. Um, and so I think it's important that parents understand that we need to uh, we need to really be involved in order for us to know what their kids are going to need. And yeah, that's my style.
I want to make a correlation because when your daughter said she had a crush on a boy and then you started to go to a different place, I don't know if you realize you started to go to the place that your mother used to take you to.
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute. No, I need to do things differently because I'm sure you were thinking, if I go to that place, then I'm going to experience how my mom made me feel.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I may never, because all it takes is one moment that you shatter their goals, dreams, hopes, aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
They shut down.
Mm-hmm.
That pipeline of
Yeah.
free for all, being able to talk, it's gone.
Yeah.
And trying to get that back. And I'm going through that with my kids right now where they'll say something and I'm so quick to, well, what about more or better? And I have to realize like, hey, they're coming, they're sharing, they're excited. Stop bursting the bubble.
Yeah.
Just take it in and absorb it because they're proud, they're happy, they're in the moment.
Yeah.
And stop bursting the bubble.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I mean, in that moment, I thought about it and didn't make the correlation between, my relationship with my mom, I guess, in the moment, but the emotion was definitely there and the thought process was definitely there. Being that I come from, a type of parent that, was very, closed-minded. I didn't want my daughter to not want to be able to communicate with me. I think that's really important as a parent. You want to have that open line of communication with your kids. But it starts with you. You know what I mean? It starts with the parent. It starts with you being able to be vulnerable with your kids, because if kids don't just instinctively know how to be, vulnerable. They don't know how to do that. So we have to teach them to be vulnerable, and in that way, they're vulnerable with us. They're open-minded with us, and so that's where my thought process was. That's where I snapped and said, you know what, wait, let's think about this. You know what I mean? Because in that moment, it was more important for my daughter to be able to communicate. If she was able to communicate that to me, right, then the importance of that. You know what I mean? She told me, "Hey, Dad, I have a crush on a boy," and so why would I let my ego take over and and hinder that moment? You know what I mean? That would have destroyed that moment. And so moving forward, she's gonna be like, "Hey, Dad, this is what's going on with this and this and that." So that if I would have done what my mom would have done, that would have crushed that moving forward. And yeah.
I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to do something that I did with my oldest daughter, and I've just started with my youngest, and my middle one's still work in progress. But 10, 11 years ago, my daughter had an assignment for school, and it was on Pearl Harbor Day. It was December 7th, and she had to go to a recital. And so she asked me to go with her, and I said, "Oh, well, why don't we go grab dinner and stuff? Let's get dressed up." And I don't remember exactly the details how it happened, but when we traveled, so we ended up having this beautiful dinner before. And then we went to the recital, and it was the most amazing time. So I said, you know what? This is our father-daughter date. Every year on December 7th, we're going to get together, and we're going to go have a father-daughter date. And those father-daughter dates have been the most powerful. Even when I didn't talk to my daughter for 5 years, we still went on the father-daughter date. So we held on to the tradition, even though I didn't want to and she didn't want to. But it was able to revive our relationship. And so now it's been a work in progress, Susan. I'm healing my relationship with my girls. But I'm going to challenge you to pick a day with your daughters. Let them pick the day and let them get dressed up and, man, spoil them and take them out and expose them to how they should be treated, how a man should treat them. And if you start that, that'll be the highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you say that because we actually do have daddy-daughter days. We have every other weekend or like once a month, I would say. It's just one daughter to me. And we go to the aquarium, go to the movies, go have dinner. And yeah, just daddy-daughter day. You know, we just go do stuff together. We don't get dressed up, you know what I mean? But I think that's a great idea, and I'll definitely take you on that challenge.
This is the one where you're gonna start, where they're gonna be princesses for the day.
Yeah, definitely.
And Dad's gonna get dressed up, and they're gonna get dressed up, and you're just gonna.
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. I like that.
And the important thing about that is, that's the day that you have conversation.
Yeah.
And it stays there.
Yeah.
That's the day that you create those boundaries that, hey, we're going to share things here, but this is your one time of the year to be able to share whatever you want. And once we walk away from this restaurant, we're going to leave it there.
Yeah. Yeah, most certainly. And I can see how powerful that can be. And I'm always up for any challenges that is going to make me grow as a father and as a person. I think that's a very, very, very important thing to do, especially when you're building a relationship.
So girls, Uncle Edward right here just got you guys set up for some father-daughter dinner dates where you're going to be a princess, you're going to dress up, and you guys are going to have some amazing memories, and you're going to honor that date every year, no matter what. Every year, that is going to be an honor tradition.
Absolutely.
From this point forward. So get your dinners in this year, okay? Because the year's almost over.
Remember, Dad's on a budget. But in all seriousness, no, that's amazing. I love that. I think it'll be not just a memorable moment for them, but a memorable moment for me too. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's hard for us to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
It's kind of hard to, we were talking about putting that guard because, as a single parent, it's definitely hard for us to be selfish and, do things for ourselves. And that's important. You know what I mean? That's important because if we don't take care of ourselves, it only makes it hard for us to take care of our kids. We need those mental days. We need, to, kind of vent and let go. And, I again, going back to therapy, I love therapy, man. I love being able to this is therapy for me. You know what I mean? This is very vulnerable moments for me. You know what I mean? These are moments that I love to kind of just share, and that I wanted to share this because, I again, not sure how many people are going to relate with my story, but if I can share my story and be able to relate with just that one person, and I'm talking to you, if my story changes you and it's able to make you a better parent, a better father, man, that's all I can really ask for. You know what I mean? I think that it might take just one conversation. It might take one podcast. It might take to look at all of your podcasts. But do it. You know what I mean? Do it. Become that better person. Become that better father. Because you become a better father, you create amazing kids that are going to change the world. They are going to be amazing people, and oh man, just being able to know that, you can make a difference that can change the world. I mean, I know kind of just, thinking very, very big here, but it just takes one person. It just takes one person to make that difference. And Edward, you're making that difference right now too. You know what I mean? Like, being able to learn from your past, and you know, you learn from your past a different way than I learned from my past, because our pasts weren't the same, but we're learning from our past the same way.
And there's no right or wrong.
And there's, yeah, absolutely. And definitely we need to learn how to just be able to take care of each other, take care of ourselves. And whatever it is that you need to do to be able to do that, whatever it is that you as individuals, because I mean, only you know yourself, right? Whether it's therapy, whether it's journaling, whether it's plant-based, faith, religion, whatever it is that you need, just do that. You know what I mean? And again, like you said, there's no right or wrong way. There's different things that you can do that are at your disposal.
And you hit on something powerful, because you said, I love therapy. This is therapy. And you're right. It's surrounding yourself with other like-minded men. And I kid you not, I just went to dinner a couple weeks ago with some old friends from high school. Like, they were like we were gangsters, right?
Oh, wow.
And we're sitting around talking about our kids and the ups and downs. And 30 years ago, if you would have told me that we would be having this 35 years ago, you would have told me we would be having this conversation, I would have said, you're fucking crazy. But we're sitting around talking about our kids and our grandkids, and it's beautiful. And it's like, I'm gonna, and I don't know if you do this, but I'm gonna challenge you fathers out there, that when you go to family functions, when you go hang out with the guys to go watch a football game, or you go to a bar, if that's what you choose to do, and watch a game, hey, fucking it's great to, be in camaraderie, have conversations about sports and your teams, but fuck the teams. Talk about your kids. Talk about the struggles you're going through. There's time to talk about, being upset with your players and your fantasy football and all that other fucking shit.
Yeah.
But also squeeze in some time to share what's working, what's not. What are your struggles you're going through? Because I can't tell you, man, just how many people I know that have off themselves, fucking killed themselves because they were struggling and had nobody to talk to. They didn't feel like they had a safe place to be able to come to their friends or family and kind of share, like, man, this is what I'm going through. I'm struggling with my kids.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with my mental health.
Yeah.
We have to now let down that guard and just know that it's okay to ask for help from a friend, a brother, a coworker, someone at church, a therapist, whatever it is. But open those lines of communication, because, and I'm just going to talk about suicide for a second and say, when you make that decision, you're not just hurting yourself, but you're hurting everybody else that has to live with the sadness, the tragedy of your decision.
And in the same way, be that safe space for other people. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Also be available to other people, because we don't know what they're going through. You know what I mean? We definitely don't know what they're going through. I think it's important for us to reach out. Hey, listen, if I can say anything, just reach out to a friend. Hey, doesn't matter whether you feel that they're going through anything. If you love that person, just tell them that you love them. I read something somewhere, I forgot where, like, a lot of people, send flowers and say good things at people's funeral, but they don't say it when they're alive. You know what I mean? Say it when they're alive. You have all these friends and families that you care for and love, and just reach out to them. Just tell them, hey, you know what? Just take a moment. Just say, hey, I love you, man. I love you. It chokes me up because, vulnerable moment. Okay. There's been times where, like, I didn't want to, commit suicide, but honestly, I thought about what would life be if I wasn't in this world. And it was horrible, and I thought about my daughters, and I said, you know what? No, I don't want to put my family through that. So, but in that moment, I said, hey, listen, if you wish people would reach out to you and say, hey, how are you? Why don't you do the same? And so I started reaching out to people like, hey, how are you doing, man? You know, forget me. Like, I don't care whether you want to know how I'm doing. I genuinely wanted to reach out to people and say, hey, how are you? And I love you. And it's hard because sometimes you do need to hear that. You do need to hear that. And because just life just is just so hard sometimes, you need to hear that, and we were talking about earlier, like, we kind of put that guard up, and just like, sometimes, you know once we put that guard down, be vulnerable, you know what I mean? Like, it's just really hard, but yes, reach out to people, tell them you love them, just, be there for them. If they need somebody to talk to, just be that safe space for them, because we never know what people are going through, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, definitely. I think it's important that, you reach out to people too. Hey, man, listen, I need somebody to talk to. I want to just kind of get something off my chest, and it's okay. For a long part of my life, I couldn't. I didn't want to burden anybody with my thoughts and my emotions, because of fear of them being like, well, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, that's life. And yeah, you're gonna have those people that are gonna say, yeah, that's life. But then there's other people that are not. They're gonna listen to you. And if you are around people that don't give you that safe space, get rid of those people. Get rid of those people. Those people will not do anything good for you in your life. So be that safe space for that person. Get rid of the people that don't really care how you doing. And I know sometimes it's hard, sometimes these are people that you've known for such a long time, and but at the end of the day, you need to realize that those people are not going to allow you to grow. They're not going to be a positive part of your life. So those are the things that you need to get rid of to be able to grow as a person.
You triggered a memory, because I'm named after my uncle Eddie, one of my uncles, and he went through some struggles in life and was an entrepreneur and in business, and then had a falling out with my two cousins, his daughters, and struggled with addiction and a couple other things, and he took his life. He took his life in 1991, and we had gotten close because I'd gotten kicked out of school, so I was using their address to go to Pioneer High School. When Love went in. We had gotten close, but his biggest thing was just, his girls had kind of turned his back on them, and so, and there were other things going on, but it was just, he felt so lost that he felt his only way out was to take his life, just because of that sadness, that guilt that he had. And fast forward, as I was struggling with my girls and stuff, just know that these thoughts, they're normal. And I even contemplated at one point where I was just in a dark place, and my girls hated me, and it was bad. And I even contemplated, like, maybe I should just kill myself. Maybe, but then see, it was me like, well, I'll show them, I'll show them, like, they're going to look back and they're going to live in regret. And that's how I'm going to get them back, So it's a real thing. It's a real thing that we go through. Not only men, but women. But I love the fact, be a safe space, and then also reach out to people and check on them and check on, how they're doing. I love that, and the other thing you mentioned is, we have this foundation, Fatherhood Voices Foundation, and you brought something up. You said, hey, girls, I'm a single dad. I'm on a budget. Maybe that's something we can help you with through the foundation, is maybe we can not we are going to facilitate these dinners. We're going to pay for the dinners. We're going to pay for the dinners for the foundation. And,
man,
for those of you that don't know about our foundation, Fatherhood Voices Foundation is something we've created, and we're still finalizing the board, putting the board together. So if you have any interest, reach out to us. But the one thing we've started to create is to create those father, daughter, and son dinners to create fishing trips where you can have that one-on-one time.
Wow.
And other things that we can do, that not taking her to Disneyland and all that other shit. No,
Yeah.
it's creating the one-on-one time, and then also helping to facilitate the conversations with talking point cards where
Yeah.
you're going to have these conversations. And, we have a journal we created, and it's so a son or daughter can start to have that conversation with their father.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have that connection, but it's a weekly journal that they can go ahead and start asking the questions, and every week, and they start off easy, but then they get a little bit rougher, and then they get to, can you tell me why you couldn't show up for me? So it gets pretty deep.
Right.
But
because it's sometimes it's hard to have those conversations with your kids. You don't know where to start. You know what I mean? Maybe just life gets in the way, and you're probably thinking about your day that you have a kid present in front of you that you don't know how to start that conversation. So I think those would be very important and really great to have, to be able to start those conversations.
So as we start to wrap up, which has been a powerful episode, man, what's the final closing message you want to leave for your girls?
Well, for my girls, I think that
talk to them.
I want to just tell you girls that Daddy just loves you from his bottom of his heart. There's nothing that I would do for you girls, and I'll walk to the end of the world. You guys are my life, my world, the air that I breathe, my princesses, and I'm going to do everything I can to be able to just do everything to make you guys happy. And just know that if you need me for anything, if you need to talk to anybody, just know that I'm here for you.
And to fathers out there that maybe aren't showing up like you are,
for fathers that are not present, I know it might seem like I don't have a ground to stand on because I did have a present father. All I can say is that I do have children, I have daughters that if I wasn't present would be in a worse place than what they are now. And I know that if your children are accessible, then reach out to them, be present in their life, because you will make a difference in their life for sure, a positive difference. If they don't have you as a father figure, they're definitely finding that father figure somewhere else. And if you're present, then you can make an impact in how they grow up as people. So do whatever you can to be able to be present in their life, because not everybody has a father. Some people don't have the they just don't have a father. They don't have a living father. So people that don't have a father, they find a father figure somewhere else. Sometimes they're not lucky to have a really good one.
Absolutely. I'm just going to take a word from what was just shared, and just accessibility. Be accessible to your kids, because if not you, then who? A toxic man, drugs, gangs, alcohol. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fatherhood Voices, where through other father stories, not only fathers, but even mother stories, we're helping to break the toxic cycle and heal families.